Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, and welcome to this great webinar today. It's what to expect when you walk onto a set. So the very first thing is congratulations. You've been booked for a job. And it might not seem like such a big deal to you, but it should be, because you've got to remember, out of anybody in the world, you were booked. And I can tell you, I took a really good workshop with a wonderful casting director. He does primarily projects on the East Coast in Atlanta, Louisiana, North South Carolina. And he was telling me that for every role that he sends out on the breakdowns, and that's information that will go out to agents, managers, it's sent out by casting directors typically. He will get a minimum of 500 submissions. 500 headshots, resumes will be sent to him for every role. I interviewed, actually for another webinar that I did, a TV commercial casting director in LA. He will typically get anywhere from 1,500, sometimes it could be even more than that, per role for a TV spot. So the fact that you've been booked for this job, that's wonderful. Congratulations. So you get booked for the job. Now, here is the information you're going to need before you leave for the job. So first, make sure you've got the address. And since you're going to be plugging it into a GPS, I would definitely test it out ahead of time. It's weird. Every once in a while, I will find that there's a place that just doesn't show up properly on my GPS. So anyhow, I would just go through it. If it's something weird on your phone, I would just go online and do Google Maps or something like that. But make sure and maybe write out the actual direction. Just make sure you know how to get there. The night before, I would pull out and pack up all your wardrobe. You might have an early morning call. I remember working on a project, actually it was just a couple of weeks ago, and I had to be out of state at 6 a.m. For a project that was happening about 2.5 hours away from me. I wound up leaving my home at 3:30, got up at 3, and it's really helpful to have everything packed the night before, go over your list, make sure you have everything. And I can tell you one time I was on a set, and this was for one of the extras. I guess early in the morning, he was going through his closet, grabbing everything that he needed. And I guess the room was a little bit dark because his wife was still sleeping or something. He shows up on the set. He had two different pairs of shoes. They look kind of similar, but they were definitely two different pairs of shoes. So anyhow, make sure that you have all your wardrobe put together. Make sure it doesn't get wrinkled and things like that. Also, you always want to have a contact number just in case something happens. You get lost, there's an accident, you get stuck in traffic, who knows what's going on. But that way you can call somebody from production just to let them know what is going on, so they're not either calling an agent saying, hey, where's the talent? Or they're not desperately thinking, oh, this person's not showing, let's find somebody else to replace this person. That's potentially a really bad situation. Certainly give yourself plenty of time to get lost, to have traffic issues, to have parking issues. Also, always bring a pen. Bring some paper with you, things to write on. You just never know when you might be taking notes, you might be writing down things. So always bring that. And I highly recommend, this is for everybody, have a business card. Now on my business card, it's two-sided. And on one side, it has all of my acting and print information. On the other side, I talk about my book, my private online mentoring and workshops. And you never know when you're going to run into somebody, whether it's on a set or you're at the supermarket and you hear somebody talking about a film project. Look, most people don't walk around with 8x10s and their resume with them, 8x10 headshot. So always carry business cards with you. They are really, really good to have, especially on a set if you're working as an extra. And by the way, all the stuff that I'm talking about now, this is for extra work. And by the way, I was just going to mention there is a really good company. I don't get anything for this. I just happen to like them and I've used them for my business card. It's called U Printing, the letter U Printing. And I think they do a really nice job. So anyhow, it's a place to check out. Also, make sure, and this is really, really, really important, you will need some kind of identification when you show up on the set. So make sure you have 2 out of the 3 items I'm about to mention: driver's license, a social security card, or a passport. Because in some of the documents, and we're going to talk about those later, some of the documents that you will be filling out, you need 2 out of those 3 documents. And sometimes you have to show it to somebody to prove that you are who you are. You also want to be camera ready. What camera ready means that you've done your hair. If you're planning on wearing any makeup, makeup is put on, and certainly don't wear too much makeup. Just make sure you look okay. Look, as an extra, chances are, you could or could not be seen. It varies. You never know. Sometimes you could be in a crowd, but for some reason they decide to pan on you for that particular scene. So, yeah, just make sure that you are ready to be filmed in that moment. Okay, so when checking in, and this is whether you're arriving at a location or on an actual set, you're going to be looking for what's called extras holding. And extras holding, it's just like what it sounds like. It's where the extras hang out. And this is where you'll be seated. This is where you'll bring any wardrobe that you were supposed to bring. This is where you're going to be checking in most likely. And this is where you stay until they need you to come onto the set. So typically you're going to check in with a PA. A PA is a production assistant. Typically, these are young people. Typically, these are people who are interested in being involved in the industry in some capacity. And it could be anything. Maybe they're interested in writing. Maybe they're interested in being a producer. Maybe they want to be a director. Maybe they want to be a casting director. It could be a whole lot of different things. But it's an interesting way of getting an introduction into the industry. I can tell you that they get paid very little money. You, even as a non-union extra, you're probably making just as much, if not more, than the PAs. They work really hard. They show up prior to anybody else showing up. They are there later than pretty much everybody. They check in the extras. They check out the extras at the very end of the day. They will help with sending extras, meaning that if you're doing a scene, sometimes it's the PAs who will say, okay, move now. And they will tell you when to go and things like that, where to be located. If you have questions, they're the ones to go to. And so anyhow, they have a really, really tough job. But it's the PAs. Those are the people you're going to be dealing with normally. You're going to be giving out forms to fill out. And for every project, you might get slightly different forms. But whatever the forms are, you're going to hold on to them until the very end of the day. And when you're done, you'll fill out the additional information. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. And then they will look it over, make sure that everything is filled out properly, everything gets signed properly. They keep the copies, and then they will give you one copy, and that's for your records, and that's to make sure that you get paid and you get paid properly. Now, if you are given props could be anything from a coffee cup for the scene, maybe it's a knapsack, maybe it's a camera, maybe it's a suitcase, whatever it is. If you were given a prop, or you are asked to change your wardrobe and they give you some wardrobe for the day, then typically they will ask for your paperwork. They're going to ask for your voucher because that way it helps guarantee that you're going to return it to them at the end of the day, because if you don't have your paperwork, you can't get paid. Okay, so the forms that you're going to be filling out, typically they are Well, they come different ways. Sometimes they're three color coded copies, but normally you will fill out the top sheet and the bottom sheets get reproduced. And so you need to write in things like your name. You're going to be writing in your address, your start time. Um, Depending on your situation, if you are a member of the union, Screen Actors Guild or SAG-AFTRA, you will be writing in your meal times, your start time, your end time with meals, because, and I don't want to get into too much here about union rules, but union actors have to be fed every 6 hours. Otherwise, there are meal penalties, just like there are wardrobe fees. And once again, I'm not going to get into too much stuff here, but essentially, if you are a union extra, not if you're non-union, but if you're asked to bring a couple of changes for the scene, maybe they're shooting a couple other scenes and they need different wardrobes for each one, what you wear to the set, the wardrobe that you wear, that's free. You don't get paid for that. But if you were asked to bring additional wardrobe for additional scenes, you do get paid for wardrobe. So on one of those forms, it's going to ask, did you supply the wardrobe? How many wardrobes did you bring? So anyhow, those are the kinds of things you're going to be filling out. There's also something called a W-4. It's going to be asking you for your marital status. That's how they will determine how much in the way of taxes are taken out. I can tell you something that I do, because also they're going to ask for deductions. Do you want? And so for me, because I do make some money off of jobs where taxes are not withheld, like when I'm doing workshops or private online mentoring or commercial modeling jobs, I always want the maximum taxes taken out, even though I do have some deductions that I could take. I don't. I always put 0 in. So that way, more is taken out in taxes, less is done, but that's, hopefully less taxes I have to pay at the end of the year. Make sure when you are filling out your address, it is done really neatly and cleanly, so that way there are no mistakes made when they are sending you a check. There's the I-9 form. There's also something called an EEV. It's the Employment Eligibility Verification. And actually, this is kind of neat. When this first came out, basically, they want to make sure that you are legal, that you are allowed to work. And I actually did a training film about the EEV. When it first started kicking in, that was being shown to many, many, many different companies. So anyhow, you have to fill that out as well, just to prove that you are capable and you are allowed to work in the United States. Sometimes, not always, you will be asked to sign, it's called an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and this is separate from the other forms. And basically what this says, it's a lot of legal jargon, but essentially what it's saying is, you agree to not share information about the project. I mean, certainly, if typically there is information out there that there is a project being shot. Sometimes it's not, though. So sometimes, like I remember auditioning for a film, and the producers didn't want anyone to know that they were beginning to film it. It was a sequel. And so in the NDA agreement that I had, and this is just for auditioning for it, I was not allowed to say that I auditioned for this project because they didn't want that information out. For a film that I worked on recently, you can go to a place like IMDb, Internet Movie Database, and you can look up this film. And it will have information about the film, the principal actor. So there was no problem mentioning that to other people who I know. But what they were concerned was you can't talk about plot, you can't talk about what was going on in the scenes, because they didn't want, it makes sense. They don't want information given out before the film actually is shown to the public. So when you do fill out the NDA, you will hand that in and treat that seriously. it's not something you want to play with and go out in social media and start talking about things, because you might hear from the legal department from the production company. Okay, so once all the forms are filled out, and I can tell you this varies from job to job. Sometimes a PA will want to look over everything, especially if there are lots of people. They know it's going to be a crazy out. So when you're done and everybody's bringing in their forms at the end of the day, they want to make sure that you filled out everything properly, minus your end time, because they won't know that, or maybe your lunch time. They might not know that either. But once all that is completed, then you will be seen and checked out by hair and makeup, also typically by wardrobe. They just want to make sure you look okay. Sometimes they will do a little trimming just to make sure that you look okay. Sometimes they will actually spend time, if it's some kind of period piece, whether it's something in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or even prior to that. They want to make sure that you look right. And once again, wardrobe department will go through the wardrobe that you brought just to make sure that it looks appropriate. And if not, then they'll most likely give you some wardrobe that they have in their trailer. And once again, like I said, if they do give you wardrobe, expect them to ask for your paperwork. Okay, so for extras holding, and that, once again, that's where you're going to be hanging out. Don't bring anything into extras holding and leave it there that you are concerned about losing. That's why I don't bring books. I don't bring laptops. I don't bring anything that I'm concerned about losing. I might bring a newspaper, and if it gets taken, okay, it's not that big of a deal. Maybe there's a magazine, not that big of a deal. I might bring that as well. Typically, I don't bring anything. I will go there. Quite often, I use downtime if I am doing some extra work, which I don't do that much of it, but every once in a while, I will do extra work. For me, and not that I have to justify it in any way, but as a vested member of SAG-AFTRA, meaning that I've earned enough money over 10 years, a minimum of 10 years, that I have a pension. So as long as I make my minimum income, I add to my pension. So if I'm available on a date and a casting director calls me, somebody I know, they need some people, as long as I'm available, I will typically do it. So when I am in extras holding, I bring things to write. Maybe I'm working on an interview for another webinar, and I'm thinking of questions for my guests. Maybe I'm thinking about an article. I'm one of the expert writers for Backstage, so maybe I'm coming up with some ideas for that. So that's how I spend my time, and also just talking and networking and sharing information with other people. But I just don't bring things because I'm concerned when you go out to the set and you can't bring those things onto the set. I'm afraid that they're going to get stolen, to be perfectly honest with you. So you got to be really careful with that. You will be told, most likely, oh yeah, we'll have, a PA, sit around here and make sure that everything is okay. It doesn't always happen. And sometimes the PA is needed someplace. They pull them from extras holding because nobody's in there. And they're not necessarily responsible for anything that's lost. So just think about that ahead of time as far as what you want to bring with you. As far as food goes, I would eat ahead of time. You just never know what the food situation is. Now, like I said, for union actors, if you're a member of SAG-AFTRA, they are entitled to provide meals for you or snacks and things like that. But, sometimes things change and they could just pay a meal penalty, in which case you're going to be starving. So anyhow, eat ahead of time, just so you're not in a situation in case they don't have any snacks there for you. There is something called craft services, and Typically, for union extras, they have to have access to the same craft services as the principal actors or the crew. Sometimes it's in a separate area than for non-union extras, and the craft services for non-union extras typically aren't as nice as for the union extras. But normally you'll find fruit, you'll find water, coffee, could be danishes, things like that. Or sometimes they're nicer. You never know. But so certainly use it as a snack, but eat ahead of time. If they do break for a meal, I mean, you will get some kind of meal most of the time. It could be a box lunch. It could be, a nice meal. But once again, you never know. And like I said before, the union actors, every 6 hours, we have to be fed. Otherwise, there are meal penalties. But hey, I just worked on a project and I had $150 worth of meal penalties just because they didn't supply meals. What to do now? Okay, so you're in extras holding. Definitely grab some snacks. And by the way, don't do what some people do, and it's just kind of obnoxious, to be honest with you, where they just start stuffing their pockets with bags of peanuts and other snacks and things like granola bars. This is set up for us to eat while we're working there, not to take home and have a month's supply of food. But certainly grab snacks, get things to drink. If you do need to go to the restroom, and I would, make sure that, if you're sitting in extras holding, make sure that you are ready just in case they call you at any moment. Okay, let's head on out to the set, because you could be out there working for, hours. Just make sure you go to the restroom, so that's not an issue later. And if you do need to leave and they don't have a restroom right in that area, always walk over to a PA, a production assistant, and say, hey, do I have time to run to the restroom now? And then they'll let you know, and then you can tell them, okay, I'll be right back. What I like to do is when I get back, I will walk over to that person who I asked just to let them know, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm back. And that way they're not concerned. They know everybody's there. It's just a nice thing to do to help make their lives a little bit easier at work. This is also a great time to network, talk with other extras. Now, you have to understand too, you're in the room with a lot of very creative people, and sometimes lots of egos as well. And you will find there are some people who love to hold court, be the center of attention. They've got to be the star of the show. They're going to tell you every job that they've done for the last, 10 years. And, I find that I like to gravitate more towards people who I can just have conversations with, people who I think will be interesting. Certainly, if there are people I know who've had a lot of experience, it's fun to be able to share information and talk about things. But, I don't go in there just, announcing to everybody, hey, by the way, I've been making a living at this for over 30 years. I've done over 1,200 jobs. Hey, by the way, did you know I had a recurring role on House of Cards? That's just not my style. It's not what I like to do. So I like to meet new people. I like to learn from people. I'm more than happy to share information with people. And this is a great opportunity to do that and just mingle with some of the extras. And if you find that the conversation just isn't doing for you what you would like it to do, move on and go to somebody else. But you can talk about and learn about photographers in the area. Maybe they shoot headshots. And once again, this would be a good time to take notes. Oh yeah, what's the photographer's name? Do you have their website address or email address by any chance? You can talk about commercial photographers. Maybe there are some people in town who are shooting commercial models. These would be great people to reach out to. Maybe you can learn about some other agents in the area who people seem to really like and get their information. Maybe there are projects coming to town that you didn't know about, and there's another movie. Do you know who's doing the principal casting or who's even doing the extras casting? So anyhow, it's great. Or maybe there are some classes that are going on. Do you know of any teachers in the area who you would recommend? It's just a wonderful opportunity to learn so much about the industry and about the area in which you are working in. Something else that I like to do is I like to listen to other people's conversations. Sometimes I will hear people, once again, kind of bragging, talking about themselves and stuff like that, but I'll just stay quiet and listen to what they have to say. And sometimes I learn some things from them, which can always be helpful. And once again, this is a place where you can exchange contact information. This is so important. Make sure before you leave for the set, I think it's a good idea, even when you're in extras holding, make sure your phone is on silent. Personally, I like to just shut my phone down. And not to say that sometimes I'll turn it on just to check, see if there are any immediate things I have to deal with. Maybe there's a last minute audition. Maybe there's a job that's being offered to me. But I like to keep my phone off more of the time than having it on, just because I don't want to forget and have it on the set. That can get you tossed off of a set. There's a big scene going on, and all of a sudden your phone starts ringing. And I also I don't really enjoy listening to people have loud conversations on their phone in extras holding. Once again, that's just me. So if you are going to be making phone calls, and I get it, sometimes you will, need to make some phone calls, or you want to, just talk calmly to people and just try to make it a personal conversation. Or sometimes you can step right outside of extras holding if you need to make some phone calls, especially if you want some privacy. The other key thing is, make sure your phone is off when you're on the set. I know sometimes people will put things on vibrate, but vibration can make noise. You can put it on silent, but I don't know. For me, I just get a little paranoid that on silent, some kind of noise might happen. So I just shut it down. The other thing too is just stay away from some of the negative folks on the set. And it's like with any other group of people, you're going to see a large and a wide variety of really nice, kind people who are being very helpful, to others. And then you find some people who just complain, and that's all they do. They're angry, they're bitter. And, these can be union extras as well as non-union extras. And I guess my way of thinking is nobody forced us to be on the set today. This was our choice. And if you're not happy about it, then don't come, but it's not fun to listen to people complain. So those are the folks I sidestep, move away from, and really just don't want to spend time with. Sometimes when you are in extras holding, and it doesn't always happen, but sometimes you might have a first AD. So let me explain what that means. You've got a director of the project, and then you've got a first AD, first assistant director. And that's the person who works under the director. That's the person who will share information about, hey, just want to let you know, in this scene, this is what's happening. This is the background, just to give you more information. So when this person walks through the scene, he's a ghost, so you don't really see him, whatever it is. And then you also will have, in a lot of projects, you're going to have a second AD and then a second. And so I'm just throwing those terms out to you just so you have a general idea of what to expect. But sometimes the first AD might tell you what's going on. This is crucial. And people do this all the time. And it makes all actors look bad. Certainly when union actors, and I've seen union actors do this, they know better, they should know better, they should never do this. Never, ever, 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 ever shoot a scene on your phone. Never take any pictures on a set with your phone. It's just a horrible thing to do. And I have seen people thrown off of a set for doing that. I've seen people have their phones taken and have information deleted. It's an intrusion. There are legal issues with this. This is copyrighted information, and so the point is, don't do it. The other thing is, and I've seen people do this too, they'll see a principal actor, a well-known actor, and they'll run over to them and, hey, can we do a selfie? Hey, they grab them and pull their phone up, or they ask them for autographs. And look, let me just say, and I don't want to spend a lot of time with this, but certainly there might be a scene coming up for a principal actor that's really simple, not a lot of preparation. Maybe the person is just supposed to be walking out of their car, and you don't even see their face, and they're walking into a house. So it's not like there's a lot of dialogue that they're working on, or they have to get to a strong emotional place. Still, let these people work, and if they walk over to you, and I have seen this happen on a number of sets, and some of the principal actors walk over, shake hands, hey, how you all doing? Look, if they offer, hey, does anybody want to take a photo? That's fine, but really just let these people work. And it's just very unprofessional to be taking pictures, asking for autographs and things like that. There was a production that I was on, and they used this product. It's called Yondr. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, Yondr, because there were so many extras. And for this particular scene, they had about 700 extras in this room. And there were so many people taking pictures and taking videos. What they did was, I'd never seen this before in my life. It's like a little purse almost. That's what Yondr, or Yondr, however it's pronounced. And they made everybody, before you walked onto the set, take your phone, drop it into this little pouch, and it gets locked. And you can't open it. And so while you're on the set, you do not have access to your phone. You just have to keep it in your pocket or something. And then once you're done and you're walking off the set, there's a little special device that you scan it on, and it opens up, and then you can take out your cell phone. So there were times I just left my cell phone in my car, in the trunk of my car. I just didn't want to deal with it. It took time to get it locked and get it unlocked. And during lunch, the car was close enough. I could run over and I could just at least check for messages to see if there was anything important. So anyhow, don't take pictures. I know people do it all the time, but don't. After you're placed on the set, typically a PA is going to tell you where to stand, where to sit. If there's movement in the scene, if you're walking down the street, they will tell you, here's where you start, and just walk straight down here. Sometimes they might say, okay, walk down here and then make a right-hand turn at this building and then keep going. So what's really helpful is if you find a little marker or a landmark for yourself. So maybe if you are standing, your first mark is by a store. Maybe you are standing by the door of a store. So that way you make a note of that, and that way when you have to go back and do it, 10 times or however many times it needs to be done, this is your starting point. You don't start moving until you hear background action. That's when the extras, the background, starts to move. After background action, there might be a slight delay, and then you'll hear action. Those are for the principal actors. So typically they'll have the background extras going first, then the principal actors keep going, or start. And when you hear cut and go back to one, that means you stop and you're going to go back to your original spot. Now, I know people like to be seen in a project. If you're somebody in a scene in a movie, when the movie comes out, you want to be able to see yourself. Okay, I get it. It's nice. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's exciting. But make sure you never look into the lens of the camera. It's a bad thing to do. It can ruin a take. And it can also create a lot of problems for you on the set as well. So since you have no idea how the shot is being framed, you could be standing right next to the principal actor. The camera could be right in front. And you're thinking, wow, I'm going to be seen in this one because I'm standing right next to the star of this movie. you might not be seen at all. It might be a really, really tight shot of the star's face. So don't try to figure it out and think, oh, if I move over here, I'm going to get into the... You have no idea of what is being seen on the monitor. So anyhow, don't look into the lens of the camera. You also have no idea how things are going to be edited. You could be completely edited out of the scene, even if you were originally seen when things were shot. Something that I recommend and something that I do is even if I'm working as an extra, I treat it as a principal role. I do everything, the exact same thing that I would do. I will work just as hard as an extra, as a principal, because I feel like I'm being paid here and this is my job. And I want this to be a good experience for everybody. And I feel like I'm a team player here, and I want production to have a good experience with the extras on the set. I don't do it for this reason at all, but I can tell you this has happened to me a few times where I've gotten upgraded. And I'll make this very, very long story pretty short here, but I was an extra in a TV commercial. The TV commercial was happening in a theater. There were actors on stage. It was some kind of healthcare product. And somebody in the audience starts coughing, and then a physician from this healthcare provider walks over to help out the person who's coughing. And this was on the lower floor. I'm in the upper balcony. I am so far removed from the scene itself, but I'm treating this as if I'm a principal actor. And when this person starts coughing, I shoot them a look, and I'm thinking in my head, hey, would you mind walking out of the theater? You're disturbing me. And that's what I kept doing, throughout the day. And it was really funny. It was a couple weeks later, the producer of that TV commercial saw me while I was doing a voiceover job at a production facility. And she said, oh, hey, by the way, congratulations. And I looked at her, and I had no idea what she was talking about. And I said, well, thanks, but what are you congratulating me for? She said, oh, that TV spot that you did, you got upgraded. They loved your reaction, and they did close-up shots of me. I had no idea. And in a TV commercial, if you do something that changes the scene somehow, you get upgraded. That's considered a principal. That's different than for film and TV, where you actually have to say a word or be given a word. So you just never know what can happen. But anyhow, I just think that the day is much more enjoyable. I feel like I'm using some of my acting skills in there, and so that's fun. Important terms, like I mentioned before, cut. That's when you stop. I have seen people who either they didn't hear it or they didn't understand it, and they were walking down the street and they're saying cut, and the person just kept walking and walking. We lost the person. So anyhow, cut, you stop. Back to one, that means you're going to go back to your original position, and then they'll do background action again, and then you get started. If you ever hear the term martini shot, that means it's the last shot of the day. Sometimes it's not always true, but typically that's what that means. And then if you hear back to holding, that means you're going to go back to the extras holding area. Typically, either they're setting something up for another scene, you're going to be doing another shot, or maybe you're being wrapped for the day, meaning that you are done for the day, and then they will check you out at that point. So should you accept extra work? Personally, I think that the experience could be really, really good for you. It will allow you to see what really takes place on a film set, on a TV set, or even for a commercial. Sometimes, depending on the situation, you get a chance to watch some great actors up close. Look, if you are one of 5,000 people in a football stadium, and everything is taking place on the field, no, you're not going to get a chance to watch the actors, principal actors, that carefully. But I've been in situations where I'm literally sitting next to the stars. And these can be great experiences. I love to eavesdrop and listen to what directors say to actors. I don't look at them. If a director is talking to a principal actor, I'll turn my head a little bit just to give them privacy. But I'm listening only because I want to learn, not because I really I'm trying to steal information or get gossip. I want to hear and see if there's anything I can learn from it. So I think doing extra work can be an incredible experience. You can also make wonderful contacts, not only with the other extras, but you might make contacts with the PAs. You might make contacts with the assistant directors. Who knows? And sometimes those things can lead to more work. Now, I don't recommend doing too much extra work. If you are interested in doing principal work, look, there are people, they're fine with doing extra work. That's all they want to do, and that's great. But if you are interested in doing principal work, don't do too much extra work. And I would not recommend putting extra work on your resume. The only exception to that rule is if you have absolutely nothing else to say on your resume, then yeah, maybe put one or two extra jobs on there. So at least that way they know, okay, at least the person has been on a set, they know what they're doing. Okay, let's jump now to principal work. You are a principal actor in this project. So typically when you show up, you're going to have a PA who will escort you to your trailer. You will have a trailer. That's an area where you're going to be sitting in. There'll be a bathroom in there, place to change clothes. You can lie down. It's not super comfortable in there, unless, you're a star and you've got, a huge trailer that runs a block long. Normally for small parts, it's going to be a small trailer. They're going to ask you if you need anything. If you're there in the morning, would you like something to eat? You give them your order, they will go out and they'll get it for you. It's their job to make you comfortable. And that's a nice change for me, to have somebody actually go out and do everything for me. Sometimes the wardrobe that you're going to be wearing for the shoot will be hanging up in your trailer. You will also be seen by hair and makeup. So typically a PA will escort you once again over to hair and makeup, and they want to make sure everything looks right. They'll do any last minute touches. Now that is a place where you can bring a book if you want. I always ask a PA to lock the door of my trailer when I leave. A lot of people probably keep it open. I'm just concerned, that somebody's going to walk in there and steal something. So I typically don't leave anything in there of tremendous value, but sometimes you do. Like, I'm not going to bring a cell phone to the set normally, and so I might just leave it in the trailer. That's another reason why I always like to have my trailer locked. The only drag is you have to make sure you find a PA to unlock it for you whenever you're ready to go back in there. So yeah, certainly bring something to read. Sometimes I've been in a trailer for 6 hours. Normally I like to get out. I don't like just sitting in there. I feel like I'm caged in there a little bit. So, and if you do walk out of your trailer, like if you're standing right in front of it, that's fine. But if you're going to be walking around a little bit, once again, always let a PA know where you are, because they might need you that instant and you don't want to be the person who they can't find. The PA will also walk you over to the set. And once you're done, you'll be walking with the PA. They'll take you either to the production office, which can be in the trailer, or if it's a sound stage, they'll have something set up. Or you might even do all your paperwork in the trailer, and you will have already done your paperwork when you first arrive at your trailer. Sometimes they'll just have it sitting in there for you, and they'll have everything highlighted, showing you what you need to initial, what things you need to sign. Sometimes you can request a copy of it, sometimes not. So take a picture of it with your cell phone. So basically, that's what I wanted to share with you today. Just walking you through this process of what to expect when you show up on the set, whether it's as an extra or as a principal actor. And I hope this will help prepare you better, or if you have done some extra work, maybe do a better job of knowing what's expected of you as an extra working on a set. This was great. I also want to make sure that I do offer private online mentoring. I set aside 5 days each month, and you can go to my website, howtoactamodel.com, or just go to howtoactamodel.com/mentoring program. and it will take you to the page. You can read all about the different programs that I offer. As you know, every month I do a different webinar, and all of the videos are available on the store page of howtoactandmodel.com. And anyhow, these are great. If you have any follow-up questions, you can always reach me at these links. And I can't wait to talk with you again soon. See ya. I'm Aaron Marcus.